Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, our focus zeroes in on, well, probably the biggest story in Formula One right now, Adrian Newey joining Aston Martin for 2026.
Huge news, yeah.
But we're deliberately looking past the headlines. We aren't really interested, not today anyway, in the new aero concept yet, or the fancy architecture of the new factory.
Right.
We're diving into what some sources are revealing as Adrian Newey's crucial secondary missions.
Secondary missions, okay. What are we talking about there?
Well, we've compiled and analyzed material, drawing on findings that surfaced from various motorsports publications, building on some initial research highlighted by Dice Ozone, and it suggests Newey is currently engaged in some really deep structural reinforcement at Aston Martin.
So not just sketching cars then?
Exactly. He's not just sketching the future car. The reports suggest he's quietly executing this precision talent acquisition plan, often poaching trusted, high-value people.
From Red Bull?
From his former team, Red Bull, yeah, and potentially others. The mission seems pretty clear. Fix the critical organizational weaknesses at Aston Martin now.
Right now, before 2026 even gets going properly.
Yeah, ensuring the 2026 car isn't fundamentally undermined by, poor operational execution down the line.
Okay, that makes sense. That's the core idea then, and it's fascinating because it kind of reframes Newey, doesn't it? He's not simply this brilliant, almost mythical designer.
Mm-hmm.
He's operating here more like a high-level corporate structure manager. Like, he gets that his best design ever won't reach its potential if the tools and the people using them aren't absolutely world-class.
Spot on. If the operational side is flawed, the car just bleeds points every Sunday.
Exactly. So Aston Martin, under his direction apparently, is targeting two specific areas. Critical areas that have, let's be honest, demonstrably cost them points and development momentum this year.
But sure.
Strategy and simulation.
Okay, strategy and simulation. Makes sense. But before we really dive into those two operational secondary missions, let's quickly just confirm the primary pillars, the big pieces for 2026 that are already secured, because they are pretty monumental.
Yeah, the foundations need to be right.
You've got Adrian Newey himself, chief design engineer. You've got that brand new campus we mentioned, specifically including a wind tunnel and factory built apparently precisely to meet his needs.
Which is huge. And let's not forget the power unit situation. Aston Martin transitioning into a Honda factory team.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Historically, that usually means deeper integration, you get prioritized support, and typically better performance compared to being, well, just a customer team like they are now.
Right.
Although, you have to inject a little bit of, reality here. Look at this season. McLaren's doing amazing things right now with a customer Mercedes engine.
That's a very fair point.
So the factory relationships is definitely an advantage, potentially a big one, but it's not the only variable in the equation.
Good context. Success isn't just handed out with a works deal, but they also have the engine legend, Andy Cowell, advising them.
Another big name.
And the technical leadership structure looks complete now, with Enrico Cardiol joining Aston Martin officially on August 5th. So those are the big-ticket items, you could say, the primary missions.
The headline acts.
Exactly. Now let's move to the tactical stuff, the execution.
Right, the secondary missions.
Yeah.
And this tactical work, it really seems to reveal Newey's, well, almost ruthless approach to fixing operational weaknesses. Strategy, for instance, has been Aston Martin's Achilles heel this year, wouldn't you say?
Oh, without question. They have repeatedly failed to maximize their potential on Sundays. And Newey must know that race management is just as vital as aero management.
You can have the fastest car, but if you make the wrong call on the pit wall,
it's game over. And the examples are painful, frankly. The publications we looked at highlight several really high-profile failures. The most egregious probably was that disastrous medium tire choice.
Monaco.
Yeah, that just torpedoed Fernando Alonso's victory chances at the Monaco Grand Prix.
Yeah.
Clear shot at the win, gone.
But it wasn't just Monaco, was it?
No, not isolated at all. There was that 4-lap delay and stops during the Miami sprint. Alonso was clearly on the radio asking for a pit stop, basically begging.
And they just left him out there.
Just left him out. And then the team seemed fundamentally sort of caught out by the double safety car and VSC incidents in Imola earlier this year. It just felt chaotic.
Yeah, when your strategy is consistently costing you clear podiums, maybe even wins, and definitely points, it points to a systemic flaw, not just bad luck.
Exactly. So if the problem is strategy execution, Newey seems to be targeting the highest possible quality of execution available, like go get the best.
Which brings us neatly to the key hire for this strategic overhaul, Nick Roberts.
Right. Roberts was the former senior strategy engineer coming straight out of the Red Bull Racing Bulls operation.
Deep inside the system, he started at Red Bull back in 2016, climbed the ranks, and was actually leading strategy at Racing Bulls this year.
And the confirmation or the hint of the move is what makes this so, well, kind of audacious, right? Roberts posts this Instagram message about leaving Racing Bulls prematurely.
Yeah, sort of a gardening leave announcement, but with a twist.
Exactly, saying he'd be back on track next year,
Yeah.
and then includes a very specific green heart emoji.
Which just happens to be Aston Martin's signature color.
Subtle?
Not subtle at all.
It's almost like a corporate declaration of intent, isn't it? And look, while strategic wins like, say, Max Verstappen's brilliant 2021 French Grand Prix undercut victory are always massive team efforts,
Of course.
Roberts was clearly a vital part of the brain trust on that successful Red Bull pit wall for years. So Newey isn't just hiring, people he knows vaguely. He seems to be pinpointing the exact operational skill set that Red Bull uses to consistently snatch points, sometimes wins, away from rivals.
And bringing it straight into Aston Martin.
Precisely. It strongly suggests a clear advisory role by Newey in recruitment, identifying exactly who they need to dismantle that strategy weakness. It's targeted. Yeah, very targeted. And it transitions really nicely from the human element, the strategy calls, to the technical element. Because if strategy is the human failure point,
Then secondary mission 2 addresses the technical tool failure, the simulation upgrade.
right. And why do you think Newey targeted the simulation tools so quickly and so publicly almost?
Well, I think he probably had to. The quote that surfaced from Newey himself is,
Yeah.
it's absolutely damning. He basically stated that some of Aston Martin's internal tools were weak and then specifically emphasized particularly the simulator.
Ouch.
Yeah. His initial analysis apparently revealed no correlation, his words, between what they were seeing in the simulator and what was actually happening on the racetrack.
Wow. No correlation. That's fundamental.
It's about as bad as it gets in F1 development.
Yeah.
And he didn't really mince words, estimating that fixing this massive fundamental deficiency would be like a 2-year project.
A 2-year project. That's basically a death sentence in the F1 development race, isn't it?
Pretty much. You simply cannot develop a cutting-edge F1 car if your primary testing tool, your simulator, is feeding you garbage data. False positives, false negatives.
Lost. So who did he hire to solve a 2-year problem, hopefully? Instantly.
Well, instantly might be optimistic, but he brought in a real heavy hitter, JILS Wood. He joins as Director of Simulation and Vehicle Modeling.
JILS Wood. The name might ring a bell for longtime fans.
He should. He was one of the core architects of Red Bull's really successful simulation efforts during that dominant Sebastian Vettel, Mark Webber era, 2010 to 2012. He was chief simulation engineer at McLaren before that, and then at Red Bull during those pivotal years when SimTech really took off.
Okay, so a proven track record, directly relevant experience from a top team. Makes sense.
But here's the kicker. The really fascinating detail here, the one that makes you kind of pause,
Go on.
is where Wood was before Aston Martin apparently came calling. He had actually left F1 entirely back in 2017.
Left F1. Where did he go?
He became a senior engineering manager at Apple.
Apple, the tech giant.
Yep. Successfully working deep inside, arguably the world's most valuable technology company, completely detached from the crazy pressures of the F1 paddock.
Okay, that is interesting. So he wasn't just looking for another F1 gig.
Doesn't seem like it at all. Which raises really profound questions about Newey's recruiting power, or maybe the allure of the Aston Martin project itself. Wood was comfortable, successful, far away from F1.
Only to be pulled back in, almost certainly through Newey's personal network and, you'd imagine, the promise of a specific vision, a specific challenge.
It has to be. And it just highlights the absolute critical priority Aston Martin, likely guided by Newey, is placing on getting simulation right.
And we should probably ask, why is simulation so critical right now, especially looking ahead to the 2026 reset?
Yeah, the timing is key. Because of the massive regulatory reset coming in 2026, all the fundamental design choices, the core architecture for those brand new cars, it all has to be decided now or very soon.
And development is almost entirely digital at this stage.
Exactly. It's all happening in the virtual world, in CFD, and crucially, in the simulator. Teams can't hit the track and physically test completely new 2026 concepts until much, much later in the cycle.
So if your simulator lacks correlation,
If it tells you your brilliant new idea works perfectly when, in reality, it's a dog, you are developing your entire 2026 baseline on completely wrong assumptions for months, maybe even a year or more. You're baking in failure from the start.
Right, so bringing in someone like Wood, someone specifically tasked with gaining better correlation, that means potentially massive time savings, much better development accuracy.
It's potentially the difference between starting the 2026 era near the front or starting 2 years behind schedule before a wheel has even turned. This move, hiring Wood, it feels like the definition of proactive risk mitigation, tackling a known weakness head-on.
So we've seen Newey the designer operating as, like you said, a structural head, fixing both the human element, the strategy weakness, and the technical element, the simulation weakness. Which leads us nicely into this less-known aspect of Adrian Newey, the team builder, the manager, the total man controlling the whole ecosystem.
Absolutely. And the source material suggests his approach to the team environment itself is just as meticulous, just as thought out as his approach to, say, aerodynamics. There's this incredible anecdote, apparently from his early days at Red Bull.
Back when it was transitioning from Jaguar.
Exactly. Newey suspected that a few specific individuals, he apparently called them rotten apples, were actively undermining things, maybe even sabotaging the working environment, creating a negative atmosphere.
Okay, and he couldn't just, rely on gut feeling to fire them, especially being relatively new there himself?
Precisely. A wrong accusation, especially based on just suspicion, could have really damaged his own standing within that new team structure. So what was the tactical solution he reportedly employed to confirm his suspicions?
This sounds intriguing.
He apparently hired a former friend, someone from HR, gave them a generic, totally non-suspicious job title within the factory.
So, undercover.
This person was effectively infiltrated as an observer, a sort of corporate spy, if you like, purely to monitor the factory atmosphere, gather objective information, and confirm or deny Newey's concerns about the internal dynamics.
Wow, okay. Did it work?
Apparently, yes. Once the observations from this planted individual confirmed his suspicions, Newey then moved to remove those specific people. And the report suggests the team environment improved almost immediately, and quite dramatically.
That story demonstrates the level of, premeditation and strategic thinking that goes way beyond just engineering, doesn't it?
It really does.
It suggests his current hiring strategy at Aston Martin, poaching these trusted simulation experts, top-tier strategists. It might be equally about ensuring the, let's say, the emotional and cultural integrity of the team. He's not just filling boxes on an org chart.
No, it feels like he's trying to guarantee a clean, focused, winning atmosphere, removing potential friction points before they become problems.
Building the foundation correctly.
And it seems like it's about total commitment, too. Further insight into this dedication apparently comes from his work ethic. It sounds like Newey is already pouring himself entirely into this Aston Martin project.
How so?
Well, reports mention him often being seen in the factory working incredibly long hours, sometimes spotted there as late as, 2 a.m.
2 a.m. Okay, he's leading by example then.
Demanding structural change, maybe, by leading through sheer effort and output, setting the standard.
Okay, so we've identified these structural changes Newey seems to be driving in strategy and simulation. We've seen the kind of management intent behind them, even down to workplace culture. What does all this concerted effort actually mean for Aston Martin's chances in the bigger F1 picture?
Well, I think it means Aston Martin is doing the necessary, often unglamorous, hard structural work that goes way beyond just, surface level stuff like car livery or a fancy new building.
Right, the nuts and bolts.
They're fixing the detailed operational areas that demonstrably cost them crucial points this year. They're addressing those strategy failures we talked about, and they're tackling the foundational need for a reliable, functioning development toolset, especially for the massive 2026 regulations.
Makes sense.
That said, we absolutely must remember the reality check that always accompanies F1 optimism.
Yes, the dose of realism.
And that reality is harsh, isn't it? The sources rightly remind us that all 10 F1 teams are, right now, probably very optimistic about their future success. But
9 of them will ultimately fail to win the championship.
Exactly. The odds are inherently massively stacked against any single team succeeding, even one that suddenly has a legend like Adrian Newey walk through the door.
And we have pretty potent counterexamples staring us in the face right now, don't we?
We really do. McLaren, crucially, without Newey's direct, hands-on involvement in this rule set, achieved what many people consider the best overall car of the current ground effect era, especially towards the end of last season and now.
Yeah, they look incredibly strong.
And then you have Mercedes. They built their own incredible engineering dynasty, led by brilliant players like James Allison, and achieved nearly a decade of absolutely unprecedented success. again, without ever needing Adrian Newey in their orbit.
So success isn't guaranteed by just one superstar designer?
No. It proves that having AN, having a factory engine deal, having a state-of-the-art facility, it's not some kind of guaranteed formula for winning championships. Lots of teams have had some or all of those elements and failed.
But the core analysis still stands, right? Aston Martin is prioritizing operational execution. They are focusing on structural refinement in these crucial secondary mission areas.
Absolutely. They clearly prefer to have these strategic advantages, to have this world-class talent fixing known weaknesses, rather than just hoping their current structure will somehow magically be sufficient for 2026.
They're trying to control the controllables, essentially.
You can say that. They're looking beyond the surface-level engineering, beyond just the car shape, and into the execution, into the small margins, which is exactly what can change a potentially disastrous strategy call in Monaco into a race-winning undercut or ensure the simulator data actually translates to lap time.
It's that deep foundational work that Newey seems laser-focused on getting done right now.
Things that way. Fixing the plumbing before worrying too much about the decorations.
So today we've taken a deep dive into Adrian Newey's, well, seemingly meticulous approach at Aston Martin so far. From correcting fundamental strategy failures to fixing that critical correlation problem in the simulator, and even looking back at things like using corporate espionage tactics early in his Red Bull career to ensure a positive working atmosphere.
Quite a picture emerges.
It really does. This deep dive into these secondary missions really shows that winning in Formula One isn't solely about dreaming up a revolutionary aero concept, is it? It's about the relentless execution and the careful management of every single operational detail.
Every piece has to fit and every process has to work.
And before we wrap up, we do want to give credit where it's due. The insights today came from pulling together information from various specialized motorsports publications, which themselves built on some of the initial findings and analysis highlighted by the Doors Zone research. That kind of digging is how we often find these hidden nuggets of information for you.
Good intel out there if you know where to look.
Exactly.
And maybe here's a final thought for you, the listener, to kind of chew on. Given the sheer audacity of that JILS wood move leaving a high-level senior engineering manager position at a global tech giant like Apple to rejoin the relentless high-pressure cooker of F1, what specific aspect of Adrian Newey's personal vision or maybe his management promise do you think was powerful enough to convince such critical, established, non-F1 focused talent to come back to the sport? Something to ponder.
Definitely something to think about. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.